Welcome back to Double Fries, No Sauce. Some breaking news today as Florida State lands a 4-star on the composite offensive lineman in the 2026 class. Richie, this might be, if it's not the first one, this might be the first pre-record that we've ever done for a commit. Usually I just do these solo, but glad to have you here with me today. Florida State gets Deron Parks over both Auburn and Ohio State. Seemed to be more of an Auburn FSU battle late, but as we just talked about off air, he OV'd at Auburn, he OV'd at Florida State, he OV'd at Ohio State. Big pickup for the Seminoles today. The kid is absolutely massive. Like, the one thing I've learned about Herb Hand in his short time here is that we're not doing any of this Alex Atkins, like small little framed agile guys that are just, maybe could play, defensive end or tight end or something. Like, these are massive kids on the offensive line. I don't think he's a day one guy. We'll talk more about him in a minute. It's going to take some development, but man, he's got a frame to play at any level of football that he wants with his size.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to your point, you know what? It's always interesting when you look at these offer lists on, 247, On3, whatever it may be, because a lot of times kids will say they have an offer and they'll just report it to one of these websites. And you're like, do they really have an offer or do they not? But the fact that both Auburn and Ohio State brought him in on an official visit, you're not going to spend that kind of money because an official visit is not cheap. You're talking flights, hotels, food, whining and dining. You do not bring a kid in unless they really want you. And Ohio State and Auburn really wanted him. I think Auburn probably wanted him a little more than Ohio State, but Florida State in the end wins out. And I think that's a big win for Herb Hand and Gus Malzahn. And it's a nice feather in the cap for Mike Norvell as well. Even though he probably didn't do a whole lot of the heavy lifting on this one, it probably was mostly Hand and Malzahn. But the fact that you beat out two prominent schools, one that just won a national title and another that has been pretty good for a long time, I think that's a big deal. And to your point, 6'5", 350, I think he probably could lose a little bit of that weight. And I think he will once he gets into the program. But a really good pickup for Florida State. And I just think, more good news on the recruiting trail after having a roller coaster of a recruiting season, it seems like, where we have a lot of bad news, then some good news, more bad news. Well, this is more good news. And again, the stars are important because it gives us a composite, but the offer list and, more importantly, in my opinion, the official visit list is what shows you what kind of prospect you're getting.
Just very quickly, make sure that you go over and get your tailgate tickets for FSU versus Alabama. Some questions, some comments that we've gotten. Parking is not included, but everything else is. Probably just park on Gaines Street and walk over. You'll save a ton of money by doing that. All you can eat, all you can drink. We will start around noon, maybe a little bit earlier, but come and hang out with us for the FSU Alabama tailgate. Tickets are live right now. Go to fsubama.eventbrite.com for tickets. Yeah, you mentioned the official visits. Yeah, not only are they expensive, you only get a limited number. You only get so many per year. As a kid, you can take as many as you want, but as a program, you can only use X number. So you have to be judicious with how you do that. You mentioned 6'5", 350 pounds, just a massive guy, huge frame, long arms, really strong base. Obviously, be kind of an interior guy with his size. You talked about the rankings. He's number 350 nationally on the composite, a 4-star there. There is no more On3 industry. It is, as of, I think, July 1st, it has switched over to the Rivals industry rankings. So what was the On3 industry, obviously with that merger, he's number 400 there. He's a 4-star on the Rivals industry. ESPN has him at 199 overall. He's a straight 4-star on their rankings, 247 and On3. He's a 3-star on their individual rankings.
All that
adds up to
rankings.
Say what?
I've always said ESPN has the best.
Yeah, that has always been my take too. Now, in all fairness, again, probably, a year or two away once he gets in college from playing, I think ESPN, even though it favors us here, I think they have the worst rankings. So as much as I want to hype it as much as I can, we'll try and be honest as well. Transferring from, this was interesting, Hurricane West Virginia down to Cardinal Mooney, or transferred from Hurricane down to Cardinal Mooney is interesting. His highlights kind of show dominant run blocking, pretty good pass protection. He's so big that he just absolutely demolishes defenders, does a good job holding up against edge rushers as well. He played on both offensive and defensive lines. He's won playoff games, multiple playoff games. He played for a pretty good high school as well. He's very physical, got quick feet for his size. I'm not going to tell you that I think he's the the slightest of foot, but for his size, does a pretty good job of getting low and using his hands fairly well. Playing both sides of the line, his durability, his conditioning for his size made him pretty dominant on both sides of the line as well. You talked about the offers he got, just offers from everybody you can think of, but then his list was down to FSU, Auburn, Kentucky, Ohio State, and Penn State before he committed. This isn't making or breaking your class, but I do think that Florida State needs to continue to stack offensive linemen. I think they've done really well at a lot of positions. When you look at the secondary, when you look at wide receiver, obviously they have their quarterback in the fold. I think that they need to continue to stack on the offensive line. I've heard a lot of people say this, and I subscribe to the thinking as well. Offensive line is a numbers position thing. Like you throw as many numbers as you can at it and try to develop guys into what you think they can be. I feel like it's the hardest position to rank when rankings do come out. Now they get the top guys right really, really often, but I think wide receivers, like you can usually tell, man, that guy's going to be a beast and guys can play early. It's hard to project what an offensive lineman is going to do. At this point, he's probably 3 years away from playing at FSU. He's got his senior year and then at least a year or two before he would play at any college that he's at. Projecting out what guys are going to do at that time is really tough, but you got to get guys into your system. You got to stack the numbers, and Florida State does that here with this pickup.
100%. It's a numbers game, right? We talked about it in one of our previous videos that we recorded earlier that, with the offensive line trying to gel, it's much easier if you have, the same five starting 80% of the games in a season. And he's a guy that while he may not come in and be an impact player as a freshman, maybe as a sophomore, he can start to work his way into the rotation. And then by the time he's a junior, he's a full-fledged starter. I think it's just a really good pickup. And, some people might look at, just the 247 ranking that says he's a 3-star and say, oh, great, another 3-star. But no, again, I can't harp on this enough. Look at the schools that have legitimately offered him. And if you bring a player in on an official visit, you have a legitimate option to commit at that point. Because there's a lot of times, and Florida State does this as well, where you bring in kids on a unofficial visit, and maybe you give them an offer, and maybe they get excited and try to commit, and the coach will say, you know what, just hold on, make sure this is what you want. You're just trying to stack your board at that point. But this is a situation where before his senior year, both Ohio State and Auburn really want him. You don't bring a kid in before their senior year on an OV without doing that. And I just think that, if all three schools can't be wrong on the same player, it may be in a rare instance, but I think it's a big deal. And I think, Florida State fans, as many downs as we had in recruiting in recent years, this is something to truly be excited about, in my opinion.
Yeah. I like the way that he probably fits the scheme. Now we'll see, what the long-term future is for FSU's coaching staff, and is Malzahn here multiple years, or does he take it? Like what happens there? But I do think that under Coach Herb Hand and Malzahn's offense, like he fits what they want to do. He fits with how they want to run the ball. I would certainly give him a plus, a better grade, and against as a run blocker. I don't think he's a bad pass blocker by any means, but his physicality certainly is going to help open up running lanes if he's able to be developed and eventually play for FSU. I think he fits that really, really well. And again, I like the pickup. I think you've got to continue to stack numbers there on the offensive line. You mentioned the offers, what other teams are going after. You're right. Like, is Auburn, Ohio State, and Florida State all missing on this eval? Probably not. Think about Penn State's got maybe one of the best rushing attacks in the country. These are teams that want to run the ball and run it effectively, and Florida State wins out. So a good win for Mike Norvell, Coach Herb Hand, Gus Malzahn, offensive coordinator, and Florida State's class in general. Make sure that you are locked in. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Again, breaking news for Florida State today as they pick up a 3-star offensive lineman, 4-star on the composite. Look, I'll even correct myself. Deron Parks over Auburn, Ohio State, and others. We will talk to you soon. Go Noles.